Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 111. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being here this Friday. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy Friday.
All right, Dave. We're in that real quiet zone of the NFL season right now, so maybe a bit of a shorter show today, but I do want to jump into the conversation Steelers related with a little piece of news that I think was important to share. Obviously, we've known that UG3 was on IR last year, the last half of his rookie season, has been rehabbing and recovering. We knew some sort of back injury. We did not know the exact nature of the back injury. According to ESPN's Brooke Pryor, he fractured a vertebrae with L5 in his back, and he said it's something he had dealt with in college and in the NFL and through training camp and everything, and just had to play through the pain until it became too much. So it's just good to get that confirmation of what the injury was. Obviously, pretty scary sounding injury, but he says he's fully cleared, healthy, and pain-free for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, and that's a guy that we've talked about, I think, once or twice over the course of the last week and a half here, talking about the depth of this team and going back and remembering how he played during the preseason. And I think you kind of wrote that you're extremely bullish on him for this upcoming season. And look, I mean, it appears as though the Steelers are as well too, because that's one position that really wasn't addressed, and lost some depth during the offseason, obviously with Mark Barron being cut, and then with Matakevich, look, I mean, it's more of a special teams player, obviously, than he was a good linebacker, but depth nonetheless. So not only will UG3 be dependent on to pick up where he left off on special teams, which was essentially leading the team, I think, in tackles at the time he went down with that back injury. Now he's potentially going to be the next man up.
Yeah, and I think he can be. And like I said, I've been really high on him, as you pointed out, and I want to give him that opportunity. And, I mean, if he was making those kind of plays and having that kind of training camp and preseason he had last year to earn a spot in the 53 while dealing with that back injury, I can only imagine how he's going to look, feel, and play whenever he's fully healthy and pain-free for the first time in apparently a long time.
Absolutely.
All right, so that is the little nugget of information on Gilbert III. Wanted to pass that along with you guys. Dave, you also heard T.J. Watt was on Sirius the other day talking about, helping out some of these rookie players like Alex Highsmith, being a mentor to them. And that's something you don't get from every single team, but you're going to get from T.J. Watt, which is really valuable for, what he can offer a guy like Alex Highsmith.
Yeah, and look, I mean, every time T.J. Watt's done an interview, since he's been drafted, he's that kind of guy that says all the right things, know.
But he does all the right things too. That's the good thing.
Yeah, he backs it up with action on top of it there. So, what he said really wasn't a surprise, but he's been talking about the adjustment period that's come along with the virtual offseason here. And understanding how to best attack that. He says he's watching a lot of film in that, watching a lot of conference games as much as he can, just trying to learn that way. And then when he's trying to do a lot of individual study, and then he also went on to say, talking about making sure, because he was asked in so many words, how are the younger, the rookies, young guys that have never been through this process before, how are they responding? Are they raising their hands? Are you having to prod them to ask questions, that kind of thing? And he says, I think it's a big beneficiary for me is once Alex Highsmith was drafted, I kind of reached out to him and we've talked a lot on the side. He said he just told him that from the start, that if he has any questions, don't feel like he's bothering him at all. You can always reach out to him, whether it's anything from drill work to actual alignment, or if it's an assignment, he's going to get the same playbook that I have, and I have been doing it for 3 years now. And he went on and told him, he said, he knows it's a weird time for a lot of the the younger players right now who don't necessarily have the proper equipment and know how to do the necessary drills. So he's sharing. He's sharing every drill that they're doing and answering questions, and told Highsmith in so many words, if he needs videos of the drills, he can help him with that as well too. So once again, the things that you would expect. TJ Watt's going through that stage now where he's becoming a defensive leader here. Obviously you have Cameron Hayward is the captain of that defense, but other than Vince Williams on the being part of that defense and being around for a while. Who's really next? Stephon Tuitt obviously, has more time with this team, but he's not really as vocal as per se as Hayward or some of these other guys here. So it really looks as though Watt is maturing into that next defensive team leader, if you will, type of role. And it's good to see.
Sure. I mean, he's the leader of that pass rush edge group for sure. I point out Joe Hayden as well. I mean, not been with the team forever, but certainly a big presence in that secondary. But yeah, I mean, Watt's going to be one of those pillars. Watt's going to eventually become the biggest voice in the room because he's the guy that's going to be here 5 years from now. You probably can't say the same about someone like Joe Hayden. So he's stepping into those shoes nicely. And Dave, it's such an asset to have Watt be so helpful, especially in a year like this, because in an off season where everyone's away, everyone's in quarantine, they're by themselves, it's so easy just to shrink and be quiet and be just standoffish because we're all by ourselves right now. So for Watt to be able to take that lead and be vocal with these guys and reach out to them instead of relying and waiting on them to reach out to him, because that's pretty intimidating for a rookie to reach out to TJ Watt and say, hey, can you help me out? So a big presence, a big help, and as you said, yeah, that just shows that Watt's a complete player, I think, on and off the field.
Yeah, we've got we've had the luxury to sit back and watch this entire maturation process of him. Knew his place as a rookie, speak when spoken to kind of mentality there. Let us talk and happen on the field there. And I mean, wow, here we are already. He's now entering his 4th year. So, and obviously coming off of a MVP like type season or an MVP talk worthy type season. And then now obviously 5th year option being picked up. And, while he might, probably not going to get a contract this year, boy, a year from now, we're talking mega deal, for him. And hopefully, Cameron Hayward's still a part of this defense as well too. But come the time that Hayward moves on and gets into his life's work more, you can look ahead and kind of speculate that TJ Watt will be the man to pick up the captain role, if you will.
Let me ask you this, and this is an open-ended question. I don't think there's a wrong answer to it. Of this entire team, is there a player that, how do I want to phrase this? What player are you least worried about, least concerned about, just in terms of their overall game on off the field? Is it Watt? Is it Hayward? Is it somebody else where you just feel like this is a complete player? I mean, I couldn't even give you a negative with him if I tried.
I mean, I think you just hit on a couple of them there. I mean,
yeah. Well, would you put Watt? I mean,
Hayward deserved. He's done it longer, so he deserves to be ranked ahead of Watt. Now, that's not any kind of slight against TJ Watt whatsoever. But
sure.
I mean, look at. I mean, we both have watch the all 22 when it comes to Hayward and some of the things he's able to do. Go back to that Colts game last year with Quentin Nelson. I mean, one-arm stab and getting arguably one of the best young guards in the NFL off of his platform and on one leg there. I mean, I know that's one snap, but I mean, it's just little things, the domination that we've seen out of Hayward over the years and how he handles himself both on and off the field and the tremendous work he does. I mean, this is a guy that's been up for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award too. So, I mean, it would be disrespectful for me not to have Hayward above Watt. But once again, that's not a slight on TJ Watt. This just goes back to the kind of the hearts and the smarts and
sure.
The reason the blood they go after that bloodline and you really kind of lessen, I think, the risk that's involved in a lot of these players, because look, this thing isn't a science still, right? If it was, I'm pretty sure with all the math and all, we would see teams being damn near perfect, barring maybe injuries with some of these draft classes. But the fact of the matter is, teams still miss, and they miss quite a lot, with a lot of these players. How many players, out of the top 3 rounds of every draft wind up getting a second deal? With the team that drafted them,
I'd love to know the number for that. I mean, what do you think the number is? 25%, a third?
I wouldn't even. I don't know. I would have to.
Yeah.
It's been
That'd
while
be a big research
since
project.
I mean, that would really be a big research project. Going back and having to research each one of those players. I mean, obviously you could eliminate half of them right off the top easily. With a quick search of Pro Football Reference or something. But I mean, just look at the Steelers side of it and how many first rounders they have re-up. Now, you did have the times, obviously, with the Jarvis Jones and most recently of the Artie Burns. Those guys don't necessarily work out, but for the most part, they get those first round guys signed to new deals, or at least an extra year to stay on the franchise tag, like is the case with Bud Dupree this offseason here. So, are they perfect? No, they still have the Sinquez Golsons of the world as well too. But I think it just goes back to kind of the process. Talking about guys like Hayward and Watt, and and kind of the success factor and the lowering of risk there.
Yeah, I think that TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, guys like that are proof positive of the Steelers draft philosophy of the hearts and smarts, of the bloodlines of guys that are come and work hard and maximize their potential and ability. And I think those guys have proven that. To back up to my initial question about what player you least worried about, I think Hayward obviously is no argument there. The only concern I would have with Hayward, and truly no fault of his own, is just an age wear and tear factor. I mean, this guy's 30 years old. He's played a lot of snaps. I mean, there is a slight concern there that I wouldn't have with a younger TJ Watt.
Say again?
Did I drop out? If there was a concern with Kim Hayward, it would just be the wear and tear factor of things. That he's 30 years old, he's had some injuries before, and he's just played more football in the trenches than a younger TJ Watt.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, anytime you get 30 or over, right? But I mean, it's not like, Hayward just turned. What is he? 30? What is Hayward now? 30?
I think he just turned 30 or 31. Yeah, it's no fault of his own. I'm not blaming him for it. It's nothing he can do about it. But that would just be the one thing, because you do recognize he's getting up there and he's played a lot of football and very battle tested, which is why he's the player he is today. But of course, it does create a good bit of wear and tear. 31. He just turned 31 earlier this month. I thought I remembered him having a birthday right now. But I mean, look at this as well too. He remember back to his rookie season, he really didn't play all that much, as much, during his rookie season. Definitely not as much as TJ Watt played during his rookie season as well too. So that's a little bit of wear and tear you're taking off of the front end of him as well too. And look, he did have, what did he have? Was it the triceps? Yeah, I think it was a couple years ago.
Tricep or biceps, but other than that, he's done good to stay on the field too. And yeah, I mean, it's a very demanding position that he plays. Even so, you'd still expect he to have a couple more years left in his body, right? I mean, sure. Here we are thinking that he's going to be one of those guys that's going to sign an extension here probably sooner rather than later. Whether or not it's by the time training camp gets underway, we'll see. But definitely by the start of the 2020 regular season, whenever that might be.
Sure. I mean, I'm nitpicking here, obviously. If you can have players like Hayward and Watt on your team, give me as many of those guys as possible. But that would just be maybe the one thing that I could look towards. But I mean, obviously Hayward's a stud, a baller, great off the field, on the field. He does for Hayward House, and the community is nothing short of amazing. So I mean, it's that's why this defense is so good, because it starts up front with guys like Hayward and TJ Watt.
And look, I mean, you'd hope Devin Bush. I mean, look, he's obviously was still a little young, but I mean, he's got that football bloodline and good head on his shoulders as well too. And you would hope he'd kind of mature into that next great, not only on the field but off the field, linebacker with the Steelers as well too. And I mean, constantly having a nice young transfusion into this defense. And make no mistake about it, man. I know it's a passing league, but And I still think a lot of, and maybe we'll segue into this. I still think this Steelers team right now is really being underrated right now. And I know sometimes it's easy to maybe to say that every offseason here, but yeah, I really think the aspect of the coronavirus pandemic and what it's doing to the offseason here, and how teams are having to do this, do the entire offseason virtual, and the impact. I don't think we can undersell the impact that this is going to have on younger players. And this is a Steelers defense that we've talked several times before. Look at all the guys that are returning in this defense. I mean, really, the guys that play considerable amount that are not back this year. Yeah, you have a couple of those guys, Mark Barron and Javon Hargrave. Javon, obviously a big piece, but how would Javon have had to have played as many snaps had a guy like Stephon Tuitt, not went down last year? Maybe not. Maybe you're comfortable enough with getting him in that rotation as much as he wound up being in sub package situations. Now Barron, obviously not that big of a loss, but and you hope a guy that we talked about, UG3 can come in and maybe help with a couple of snaps there. You hope they don't overwork Vince Williams, too much in that position. But top to bottom, barring injury, obviously, and not having to get too deep into depth at a couple of these positions, this defense is really set up to come out and shoot very, very strong, just from an aspect that it's not going to hurt them from not having the on the field process that goes with a normal offseason, because I firmly believe that you need these young kids out there making mistakes. And really, for the most part, you could talk about the offense too, and how many returning guys you have on offense. And this is yet another reason why I think people need to hold their breath and hold their horses a little bit on a guy like Chase Claypool. Now, do I think Chase Claypool is going to see the field? Yeah. Do I think he's going to play 200 of the first 500 snaps? No.
Yeah, I'm with you. And even Dave Tease talked about it. In normal years, you see a lot of receivers make an impact the back half of the year. A.J. Brown at Tennessee last year, Martavis Bryant his rookie year. I think Sammy Coates was just a bit of a similar story. So delayed impact.
Look, even at, Deontay did last year too, but it was almost by force,
Right.
Because what did the depth chart look? Excuse me. Ate some popcorn last night. Got some popcorn underneath my tongue.
What kind of popcorn?
Just regular.
Yeah, just playing it safe.
Yeah, I'm doing this thing where I've cut out sugar for natural. Raw. Infused sugar into diet since like April 13th. So I'm really trying to watch my sugar to help out with my levels and blood and all like that. So, but doing a lot of natural stuff, cooking with like
you're vegan now, right?
No. You didn't see my plate of pork chops and pork yesterday.
I assumed it was vegan pork chops.
No, cooking with pineapple and stuff like that, and just trying to cut sweets out and all, because all that sugar is just not good for you. So
yeah.
But anyway,
PSA brought to you by Dave Bryan and the Thorough Podcast.
Eat right. Eat more chicken. I eat a lot of chicken too. But
there you go.
Anyway, what was I talking about there? You got
me Claypool.
Oh yeah. More specifically, Deontay Johnson. What did the wide receiver draft chart look like going into week 1 of the season? Do you remember?
Well, the intention was Deontay Moncrief to play the X, and Deontay we thought was going to maybe slowly infuse himself into the offense. Maybe by week 8, kind of was the example. So it was Moncrief and Juju and Washington, and then Deontay was supposed to take a back seat to start.
Right, but you also had obviously Switzer on the team and Johnny Holton, but you knew it wasn't going to be long before Holton and Switzer was going to get bypassed there, right? Sure. And then obviously you were hoping that a guy like Johnson, would mature quick enough that he could start getting into that. Into the X spot, and he really did. To be honest with you, Johnson played a little bit more out of the chute than maybe you thought he would. But on top of that, that second game against Seattle, I mean, by then we had 4 or 5 Dante Moncrief drops on the books, right?
Mm-hmm. That led to an interception on the one from Rudolph. Yeah.
Right. And then you had, in fact, I think what game was it? Was it the third game? I don't remember. But anyway, long story short, I mean that leash got real short, real quick with Dante Moncrief, and it had to. And you throw in on top of that the injuries that Juju suffered. What week was that? Week 9, week 10 of the season there, and then obviously missing time. And then Dante Moncrief, obviously, boy, he went from starting lineup to boy. Can't wait to see if the Steelers move this guy by week 10 or week 11. That's how quickly that thing happened there. So can Claypool come in and get time in his offense? Yeah, he can. And we've talked about the different ways that he should be able to do that. But I just think it's a little rich to even think because of the way the shortened offseason is. I mean, he's really going to have to mature and pick up things quickly. But anyway, back to the entire preface here about this defense. I just think people overall are overselling this 2020 Steelers team for the sheer aspect that Ben's going to make the offense better upon his return, and really that gets ranked on top of that. The defense should be magnificent right out of the chute.
Yeah, I think to the original question about, are people underselling the Pittsburgh Steelers? I think most people recognize, and I'm talking national media here, that the defense is really good and will continue to play well. But I still think there's been an underselling of Ben. Now, it's been a bit of a reversal the last week or so with the video of him throwing again. And I think media is just trying to talk about something, and that's a debate that's being had. But really proud of that. Everyone had counted out Ben. Let's get a quarterback signed. Cam Newton, James Winston, you guys know the whole story there. So I think people just don't realize how well Ben's rehabbing, recovering, how excited this team is. And even if he's just like worst case 75% of the old Ben, this was an 8-5 team with 3 games to go last year with Duck and Mason, and one of the worst offenses in football last season. And then things fell apart the final 3 weeks. So, I mentioned this on the previous show. Basically, if you have a defense that plays about as well as last season and a relatively healthy Ben, that is a 10-win team right there, full stop. Baseline level, 10 wins for the Steelers. Then if you have a healthy Connor and Juju and other things go right, some rookies making an impact, now you're talking 11, 12 wins, really competing hard for the AFC North crown. So healthy Ben plus his defense is 10 wins, full stop. And then you can only go up from there.
Hey, what do you think the impact? I mean, are you with me with the impact this thing's going to make on rookies, not only with the Steelers but across the league as well too? I mean, you got a guy like Highsmith. How hard it's going to be hard to get Highsmith on the field and get some defensive snaps. I mean, plain and simple.
Yeah, we've been saying this for a long time now. That's going to be tough to make an impact, and that's one reason why I think they went and got a veteran tight end like Eric Ebron, because a rookie tight end, A, the class wasn't that great, obviously, but B, which has been a tough position to transition to. So for those guys, you're missing valuable reps right now. I mean, you won't start to really work with this team until training camp, I presume, and that's when the season's supposed to be. You're 4 weeks away from the season essentially. You better start going. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult transition, and the rookies that'll make an impact are the guys that put in the work now. The positions that are easier to transition to out of the jump, like running back, for example, with Anthony McFarland, and then probably guys making more of an impact towards the back half of 2020, whenever they their head stops spinning and they kind of calm things down and they can finally start making an impact on the offense or defense.
As far as Claypool goes, I got a little pushback on Twitter for that. People say, well, they use 4 wide receiver sets a lot. No, they don't. 25 times, I think, last year. 25 to 30 times in total, 4 more wide receivers on the field last season. So I don't think that qualifies as a lot. And people say, well, that obviously that was without Ben. Ben likes it more. Okay, you go back to 2018 and right around 100 snaps. Okay, I think a little bit more than 100 snaps, and didn't most of those come in like a couple of games? I want to say like wasn't a game? Didn't they have a game against the Saints where we talked about a large, 19, 20 something plays or something like that? I think with 4 more wide receivers on the field, and a couple of those times, I think one of those wide receivers was Ryan Switzer lined up in the backfield. kind of thing. So no, the Steelers do not use 4 wide receivers quite a bit. So we've been charting this stuff since 2010, 2011 there. So now could they use 4 wide receiver sets more? I suppose they could, but wouldn't you think that this team's going to want to run the ball a few times?
Yeah, it's just going to be interesting. We kind of know that out of the gate, Claypool is going to be a package player, a lot of red zone work. And we talk about that with the big receivers a lot. Red zone, that's a logical connection between the two. But of course, if you want to put Claypool on the field in those situations, who are you taking off? And I wonder how they're going to rotate that. I'm sure it's not going to be one guy. It'll be, a variety of different guys coming on off the field, different packages, different looks. But I do wonder how they're going to work Claypool on the field and what snaps that's going to come at the expense of.
Yeah, probably. I would. Here's the way I envision. I think people are trying to oversell the amount of playing time that Eric Ebron's going to get as well too. I think he can be your primary, one of your primary red zone guys out of the chute there. But I would think as the season goes on, the hope is to integrate Claypool more into, and not tight end. But obviously into some of the snaps that Ebron might get, especially when he's detached and lined up out wide. Because let's face it, Eric Ebron is really like having another wide receiver more so than he is a traditional tight end.
Sure. How many snaps do you think Ebron plays? Do you think people are overselling it? What is your realistic snap count for Ebron?
I think,
assuming health.
I think 500 ceiling.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I think a 500 bet. That's basically what Jesse and Vance did in 2018, it would have been. They played each about 500 snaps. That's how I envisioned it, an ideal scenario.
Now, if he hits that 500, but is trending in the wrong direction, at the end of the season, then I think you really got to take a long look at him next offseason. And the salary and all that goes along with it. So, look, I mean, we've seen that the Steelers usually put these 1-year Band-Aids on these things.
Right. I think we all recognize it. It's just a 1-year prove-it deal essentially for Ebron.
Right. I mean, he's going to have to make them not cut him. Give him a lot of good reasons not to cut him, and hopefully he does. If he stays healthy and because tremendous red zone asset as we saw a couple years ago with the Colts. There, but if he's on the field though in the red zone, who's likely not going to be on the field in the red zone?
Yeah, that's what I was asking about with Claypool, and I think it'll be a variety of players. I don't think it'll be one guy, but I mean, in that situation, if you have Ebron on the field, you might be running some more multiple tight end sets. So I would imagine that James Washington's going to lose some snaps in that scenario.
Right, and I mean, look, I think it's going to be a while before you see Claypool and Ebron on the field together quite a bit.
That'd be fun though in the red zone. Good luck trying to cover those guys.
It would be, but I mean, I think it's going to take a little time to get there.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, hopefully Fichtner can be creative and smart in the red zone. Obviously, this red zone offense needs a boost after what happened last year. Again, it starts with the quarterback. Understand that, but this was the 32nd ranked red zone offense last year. It was pitiful, and that's why I think you go out there and get Ebron. That's why you draft Chase Claypool. I think the number I had was 23 red zone touchdowns combined the last 2 years from those guys, and so I think that a big focal point was getting Ben back, signing Ebron, drafting Claypool, and really get you back to 2018 levels of a really prolific red zone offense.
Okay, out of the first 500 offensive snaps that this team plays in 2020, over under 200 snaps for Claypool.
Under, I think easily. I think what's a better number to put that at? A number I wrestle with more 100, 125.
Probably what 130.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah, I don't know the exact number. But I think pretty safely under 200 unless there's an injury that would open the door.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, good discussion there. Speaking of the offseason, Mike Tomlin, and he was on a YouTube channel called Beyond the Lights with Jalen McCain and was asked about, I think it was some sort of mentor program that Tomlin's a part of. I don't know the exact nature of it, so forgive me. But he was just basically asked about, how are you working the offseason virtually? Zoom calls, very different than any year before. And I thought Tomlin had some interesting comments there. He's always, I think, offering some good insights. So he said basically what they were talking about that today was listening. And he says, quote, "One of the things I challenged the guys on this morning is that listening is a skill. That's something I've been working on. That's something that these circumstances make me work on. Listening is a skill like hitting a golf ball. You work on hitting a golf ball, right? You go to the driving range, you acknowledge some guys are naturally better at golf than others. Listening is the same way. If you're a good listener, first of all, you need to be thankful for that because you're blessed in that way, but you also need to acknowledge that you can get better at it. And if you're not a good listener, you better know it." So that's really important. Again, to take it back to the rookie class this year, the guys that really focus in right now, listen, absorb, and retain all that information. Those are the guys that will have the best shot at making an impact right away. I think that's a really critical point Tomlin's making here.
Yeah, and how they go about teaching this as well, too. This is going to really test, and this is another thing that's going to give the advantage, I think, to more experienced coaching staffs, right? I mean,
sure.
You got some young. Look what's going on in Cleveland. Look, I get Cleveland's got talent, okay, and they've had talent the last couple of years.
They were the paper champs this time a year ago. They were crowning them.
And look, it sounds like a lot of people are already trying to have them finish ahead of the Steelers this year. You know, not anybody that means anybody, but still, some of these clowns out here are doing that. But I mean, these guys haven't even conducted their first these new coaches and new staffs haven't even conducted their first practice yet. And look, I realize a lot of them have been through it before. Obviously, I mean, you know, probably not many, if any, of these teams have kind of first year NFL kind of coaches, if you will, except over there in what, Carolina, right? I mean,
with Matt Rule. Yeah, well, Stefanski's never been a head coach before, so he's been a coach, but
right. But what I'm saying on the NFL staff, though, so sure. At least they know kind of what goes on with that. But I mean, now you're taking these guys, and not only the challenge of them being new, now you're going to have them in charge of putting together a great virtual program. And I don't think that I don't care if you're leaning on, hopefully you have someone on your staff you can lean on heavily in that aspect. But on the flip side, most young head coaches come into this thing wanting to do it more their way than another way. So I think all that stuff together goes back to kind of things that I've been saying about experience with this team and especially continuity with the coaching staff with the Steelers here. Is I really think it plays in their favor.
No, I agree. And I think it's even going to make – because I think most of these coaches can handle the Zoom stuff now and it'll go relatively fine. But once you come back to camp and the season is staring you right in the face and you've taken this multi-month off-season program you normally get and smushed it down into just your basically 4 to 5 week training camp / preseason, that's when you're really going to have the advantage of being a veteran coaching staff. And again, the point I made on a recent podcast was the Steelers are one of the few teams that have the same – head coach and GM from the previous time we lost a spring in the 2011 lockout. There's very few teams that have that. So the Steelers can lean on that experience of we've been through it. Mike Tomlin has coached a team that's missed an offseason program before. We've been through this before. We understand how rookies react and, what their challenges are and how to maybe better meet those challenges this time around. So there's some experience this team can rely on that very few teams have right now.
Can you imagine how much of this is going over heads of players around the league?
Do these guys even feel like NFL players? Because I wouldn't. I would feel like I got drafted and now I'm sitting at home, watching TV. Like it probably hasn't even hit you yet that you're in the NFL.
Right, but can you imagine? I mean, look, there are some and this obviously isn't everybody, and obviously probably the veterans, don't need to pay as much of attention as younger guys here, but a lot of these players, all they know how to learn is to, obviously you take it from the classroom and then you take it and you make your mistakes on the field. I really think that losing that aspect and trying to expect a player to have it, that's another thing that Watt talked about. A lot of what the defense does is instinctual.
There's a lot of visual learning, a lot of you got to go through trial and error. Yeah,
right. A lot of seeing and reaction. Off of what they see. That's so hard for you for teams to do, to do during this virtual setting here. I don't know. Maybe we should be closer to having a better reality or virtual, with the glasses and all like that. So maybe that's going to be the next big thing in the NFL. over the next 20 years.
Yeah, well, the quarterback, Steelers have some of that. They've had some quarterback VR stuff going on.
Sure, but how great would it be to set up scenarios or whatnot with? I mean, we can't be far from that. I mean, you're a Madden geek or whatever. I mean, right? I mean,
Madden is not the bar for this stuff. Did you see what happened in their Madden Bowl the other day? They won. The dude that won the championship won with a left-handed punter. He had his punter at quarterback and just never threw the ball once, and that's how he won the Madden Bowl. Yeah, it's a broken game, but yeah, I mean the technology is getting there, and so yeah, I mean that would be huge. You're right. I mean some guys learn differently. I think that's what I was talking about. Some guys you can teach, you can talk to them in a Zoom call, do stuff on the whiteboard, and they'll learn and get it that way. But some guys won't. Some guys, as you said, they got to go out there in the field and they have to do it. That's how they learn. Obviously, you're robbed of that right now, and that's going to be a challenge for those guys that learn by making those mistakes, by getting out there on the field. They can't learn as effectively just from the whiteboard and someone talking to them.
And now, I've talked this aspect of it up quite a bit. It will be a huge disappointment if this team doesn't have numerous injuries and they come out of the gate, say 2-2, or God forbid 1-3, or something along those lines. Because I really do think they have an advantage. And look, I mean, they're going to play a team in the Giants with a new head coach, right? And just a second-year quarterback in Daniel Jones. This thing really sets up with him, and I don't think assuming a ton of injuries don't happen here, if we're looking at a 2-2 Steelers team or a 1-3 Steelers team at the quarter mark of the season here, we're not going to be able to say, well, the off season and virtual, right, blah 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 blah. That's just. I think the more excuse to make will be why maybe they are 3-1 or 4-0 is that the virtual off season.
Right.
That aspect of it.
Yeah, obviously every team has to deal with this. The Steelers are better equipped to deal with this more than most other teams, maybe save one or two. So yeah, I agree. The bottom line is the Steelers are not counting on any rookie to contribute in any significant way on their side of the ball, offense or defense. If all you get from this class this year is a little bit on that side of the ball, a little bit from Claypool, a little bit from McFarland, a little bit from Highsmith, for example, and some really good special teams play, that class has done their job. They're not reliant on those guys to make an impact day one like I'm sure some other teams are right now.
Now special teams, obviously, look, I mean, you expect a couple of these guys to come out and just hair on fire. Guys like Claypool, Highsmith, Brooks. Those guys, I mean, those guys should be out there. We should be able to pick those guys up early, right from the get-go. I mean, Claypool was extremely easy to spot on special teams, even last season with Notre Dame. That's a guy that took a lot of pride in the special teams play, and usually you don't see that with college players.
Yeah, they want to get off there. That was just their path they had to take, but he told coaches he wanted to stay on special teams.
Right, and he was a gunner and able to. There weren't many instances I saw where he actually got jammed. I mean, 9 times out of every 10 punts, he's the first guy down the field, and he's going to be hard for NFL. They're going to have to vice him and all like that. Whenever you vice a guy like that, well, you got to free up another guy potentially, hopefully as well too. That kind of thing. So and look, I mean, I haven't gone deep into the stuff that Highsmith has done special teams wise because of the quality of the tapes out there, but it is out there. And then obviously with Brooks and his demeanor, I mean, he should be a good special teams player as well.
Sure. No, I think those guys can make an impact. Like I said, if all you get is special teams and a little bit of impact, worst case scenario, then I think you still can survive that. Compare that to a Cleveland, for example. They're counting on Jedrick Wills, who's a good player, but they're counting on him to be their day one starting left tackle when this guy's never played left tackle before. He's now the guy that has to protect their franchise quarterback in Baker Mayfield. Compare that to Pittsburgh that's saying, if these guys don't make an impact on offense, defense, we can survive that. And so Cleveland's relying on that rookie to be that cornerstone day one. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but that's a big risk the Steelers don't have to worry about.
Right.
So, I think it's a great point. I think it's a point, as you said, you just cannot stress enough, and the Steelers, I think, will have an advantage, and hopefully that can manifest itself into doing better out of the gate than some other teams. All right, Dave, what else do we have here? Mentioned Tomlin, mentioned Watt. Good discussion I had on Twitter, and I think PFF talked about it as kind of their most interesting position battles at left guard spot. There's really, in terms of spots that are open right now, in terms of you don't quite know who the starter is going to be. I would say it's basically two, nose tackle to some extent, and then the left guard spot, and by extension, I guess the right tackle spot. So they're framing the battle as Wisniewski versus Filer versus Dotson. Who do you think is going to be the Steelers starting left guard week 1 against the Giants?
My betting, the smart money, I think, would be on Filer.
Yeah, I'm with you, but I got some pushback for that, which is fine. I mean, I'm cool with that. I understand the reason it's against, but I still think that Filer is probably their best option, most talented player to be at left guard, most ready to be. I think Dawson's talented, but probably won't be ready. And plus, you want to see what a core 4 and Banner can do at right tackle. And unless one of those guys, either Chooks or Banner, unless both of them really fall on their face and they're just not ready for that right tackle gig, I think Filer's your guy week 1 at left guard.
I would think so. I mean, look, it didn't by mistake happen that. And look, Wisniewski's been kind of past his prime for a little bit. Yeah, he had some good snaps there in Kansas City, but it really took. I mean, how long did he go on? Not that you can measure a guy by how long he was unemployed, but around the NFL and offensive linemen going down as quick as they do, you would have thought that he would have found himself maybe back on an NFL team quicker than he did.
Mm-hmm.
All right, his tape's okay. I mean, it's not great from last season. But I don't think he's also a guy too at his age now too, where you want him, where you can expect him to play 1,000 snaps in a season.
Right. Yeah, that hasn't happened since 2015 with Jacksonville. Okay, so since we both agree on Filer, what has to happen for Wisniewski to be the starting left guard? What do you think the scenario is for him to get that job?
I think both those right tackles would have to fall on their face big time.
Yeah.
Or in injury, obviously at the position, or an injury to Filer, himself. Right. I would think. Look, I mean, best case scenario is we're sitting here, or not, maybe not best, but definitely one that's maybe an outlier that could happen would be Dotson comes in and just blows them away.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is there any scenario where Dotson's the guy week 1, and if so, what is that path?
It would that path has already gotten chewed up by them not having an off-season program.
Mm-hmm.
And at least when Pouncey came in 2010, he kind of had a situation like he did with on the defensive side of football with Watt just a few years ago. The guy is extremely smart, came in, picked up everything else probably had it a little bit easier than say Watt going up against a grizzled veteran like Harrison. But because look, who was the incumbent? Justin Hartwig, right at the time, wasn't he the incumbent?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to all the names, and is it Sean Mahan or Hartwig? One of the two.
Mahan was gone. Yeah,
was he gone?
I think it was Hartwig.
Yeah. Well, he started the Super Bowl was Hartwig, so that was that whole starting line. Who was the Super Bowl starting line? It was Stapleton and Cologne and Hartwig. Remember, he had the holding call in the end zone.
Yeah, I think it was just you go back and you look how that
some ugly names.
How that offensive line.
I can't believe they won a Super Bowl with that.
I know. Well, go back and look at what they started with at the start of the season there. And
right.
Who was the? That was Zerline. Wasn't Zerline still the? Was he still the offensive line coach then?
Yeah, that's before Bicknell disaster for that 1 year. I think it was still was that Larry Zerline.
Yeah, what they were able to do with that offensive line throughout the year with the injuries or whatnot, it was just absolutely incredible. Because you'll give yourself heartburn when you go back and look at those guys by name there.
Yeah, let me look up who the starters were. I mean, I think I named off all the guys there, but just let me get for confirmation that.
I think they started. I think that didn't they start the season with in 2009 with Starks, Chemo, Hartwig, S6, Cologne at right tackle.
Let me look here. I'm in the wrong year. Yeah, it sounds about. I mean, obviously that Super Bowl, there were injuries that year. It wasn't that was their plan group the entire time. Pro Football Reference.
Because I remember in 2009, that was Ramon Foster's rookie season. I think him and Doug Legursky were inactive right out of the chute.
Okay, that sounds about right.
Or did not play.
All right, so the Super Bowl winning season against Arizona, Houston, week 1, the opener, the starting lineups were, let me scroll through it from left to right, Marvell Smith, Chris Kimiatu, Justin Hartwig, Kendall Simmons, and Willie Colon.
You're talking about 2010. I was talking about 2009.
I'm talking about 2008. I'm talking about the year they won the Super Bowl against Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, their last Super Bowl win, because that was the Super Bowl that year against Arizona. Their starting 5 was... And just crazy as they won Super Bowl.
But Pouncey didn't come in until 2010.
No, I know. Yeah, I'm just saying how crazy it was before and who he was replaced. We were talking about who Pouncey was replacing Hartwig, and they won a Super Bowl with this lineup that year was Starks, Kimiatu, Hartwig, Stapleton, Cologne. It's just crazy. It's my tangent about that.
Okay.
Anyway, but Pouncey, I mean, yeah, the thing with Pouncey was that, and I've told the story before, is I remember his rookie year. I think it was OTAs, sometimes before training camp, I think it was, and someone asked, Pouncey, how hard is the playbook? How are things going? How are you picking things up? And he kind of smiled and paused for a second and went, it's not that bad. And you just kind of knew right away this dude was a special guy, wired a little differently, and just a really high IQ kind of player. Now,
I'm not saying that Dotson can't be that guy, but it's going to, when not having that offseason, I think is going to going to hurt him in that. Now, what kind of money would you have, or what kind of odds would you have given him had this offseason not been interrupted? I mean, obviously it would have been against him, being the week 1 starter, and especially it would have the odds would have probably been better if he's coming out of Louisiana Lafayette as a true left guard, which he's not. He's coming out as a right guard, obviously, Look, I mean, I think they're rooting for him. I think obviously by 2021, they're hoping that's their left guard there.
And I think he can be. Yeah, I mean, the issue isn't that, because offensive line and running back are like two of the positions that are easier, not easy, but easier to transition to. It's just like he has never played left guard before, so he's got to flip spots, lack of an offseason program. It's just a lot going against him. If he played left guard in college, then I think, he could still have a much better chance to compete even without an offseason program, but it's just going to be tough given the other competition of veteran guys like Filer and Wisniewski against a rookie making the switch like Dotson. That's just going to be tough for him.
Here is, I just pulled up week 1 against Houston, 2008. Okay, so this is the 2008 season.
Yeah, that's the one I read off of Simmons at right guard.
Marvell Smith, Kimo, Hartwig, Simmons, and Willie Colon at right tackle. And let's see, inactive for that game was Tony Hills.
Okay.
He was an inactive offensive lineman for that game. And guys, backups that year were obviously Starks, Stapleton, and Essex.
Yeah. Crazy. I mean, they, right after that, after winning that Super Bowl, and they kind of realized, okay, guys, we have to reinvent the offensive line for the health of the team, for the health of Ben, and that started with Marquise Pouncey as that kind of cornerstone to help rebuild the O-line, then came to Castro, Gilbert, and the rest, and turn that group around.
I have a post somewhere on the site that I just looked at recently, different starting lineups the Steelers had to use. I wonder if I can pull that up real quick here.
On different offensive line combinations?
Yeah, from one of those seasons. I wish I could find it. We'll have to go over. We'll have to relive that. Sometime.
That'd be fun to relook at. Yeah,
all the different starting combinations that they had to use. I think I can't remember what span of seasons I pulled that from, but anyway, it's incredible. But back. Where does Derwin Gray fit in all this at all?
He's just trying to make the team, I mean, he said there was an injury last year that he had dealt with. He never really felt fully healthy. He was happy to have a year on the practice squad. So we'll see. A lot of linemen who didn't play well last year blaming injury with a core 4 and Gray. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. We're going to find out this year. But this dude's just trying to make the team, show some level of versatility. And of course, he was playing left tackle at Maryland, trying to play guard in the NFL. That's a tough conversion as well. So with a year under his belt, maybe he looks a whole lot better. But it's a very quiet camp for Derwin Gray last year, and this guy's just trying to make a spot in the 53.
He's going to need something to happen, isn't he?
I mean, if they keep 9, then he might be able to get on that way. If they keep 8, he's probably not going to be one of the 8. I don't think. He was not on my roster prediction. Let me look up who I had on my roster prediction, but I don't think he was part of that group.
All right, let's see. This was from I found one of the charts that I had there from the 2010 season different starting lineups. They started in 2010 with Starks, Chemo, Pouncey, Essex, and Flozell Adams. In week one. That quickly morphed into Jonathan Scott, Chemo, Pouncey, Essex, and Adams, and then went back to Starks, Chemo, Pouncey, and then Legursky and Adams. And trying to think where the other Foster even came in around week 10, made a start. So you had in week 10 against Oakland, that game left to right, it was Jonathan Scott, Chemo, Pouncey, Foster, and Flozell Adams. And then I think they kept that starting line. Jonathan Scott. That's enough. That you talk about hard to imagine offensive lines and making a Super Bowl. Making a Super Bowl with that starting offensive line. Scott, Chemo, Pouncey, Foster, and Adams. And look, Chemo had a small period where he was good. By 2010, the tread was coming off those tires.
Right. I mean, in 05, when they were a run-heavy team at work with, like him and Starks at left tackle, when they became the more pass-heavy team, those guys got exposed.
Right. You remember that game against Buffalo where who was the defensive lineman?
Kyle Williams.
Yeah, where Kyle Williams embarrassed Chemo that game. Was that? Yeah, I think that was a season too, because they played Buffalo week 11. I think that week 11 game against Buffalo, wasn't that the one where he dropped the pass in the end zone?
Stevie Johnson. Yeah. I think so. Is that the one where Ben had that crazy 3rd and 18 run down the right sideline and got the first down?
I think you're right. Yeah, and I think that's the game that Kyle Williams just destroyed Chemo in that game. I mean, for God's sakes, you had Jonathan Scott starting at left, and Flozell Adams on the back end of his career having to learn how to play right tackle. Oh, but they made it to the Super Bowl that year.
Just unbelievable. And so, I mean, they turned that group around, but they made it with them. So, I mean, they made it work. But it's a much different group, and reinvesting in the position, investing heavily, working on depth. I mean, that's why you have a much better O-line play today.
Absolutely. And we'll see where Dotson can go. Look, I mean, his tape is exciting at right guard. I just think it's a little much, getting back to the main topic here. I think it's a little much to expect him to win that left guard spot by the time week one. Now, can he potentially get it through either one reason or the other throughout the season? I don't think it's out of the question.
Sure. Injuries, may force their hand, and with some time and some seasoning, then he'll have better odds. But I think out of the gate, I think it would take an injury or Dotson just blowing the team away with his play and readiness to get that starting nod out of the gate.
But in all seriousness, though, when you go back to Wisniewski versus Matt Filer at left guard, we know a whole heck of a lot more about Wisniewski at left guard than we do Filer.
True, but we've seen a little bit of Filer. I mean, if they didn't move Filer to left guard last year for that Rams game, I'd be a lot more tentative and hesitant to say that it's going to happen again. But just based off of that, and Wisniewski to me is more of a Finney backup type, not someone that you want to start out of the gate. If he can start, if he has to, then that's fine. I think it was still a good signing, a necessary signing, but I think Filer is just going to be the better option at left guard too than Wisniewski. Just a better player. That
was a lot of writing on the wall in that game. We saw that writing too, and we wrote about it quite a bit. And a lot of people, that was a clear to me at the time, and I know a lot of people probably thought we were crazy at the time. That was a pretty good sign that maybe Finney wasn't going to be back this offseason. And look, I mean, Finney's best. Make no mistake about it. Finney's best games have come at left guard. Against the Chiefs.
Mostly against the Chiefs.
Mostly against the Chiefs. I mean, it's not his fault. That's just when it ended up him having to play. But I mean, he represented himself good in those games at left guard. I thought he was a much better left guard than he was a center during his time in Pittsburgh. Obviously, didn't play, didn't log all that many snaps over time there. But I mean, it was a clear writing on the wall when they moved. When they decided when Foster had to miss that game against the Rams, that Filer got the start there because of Aaron Donald.
I think they got some options, and that's a good thing. They have options. They're not, forced to start one guy, and if it doesn't work, then they're in major trouble. They do have some flexibility, and again, that's going to be important for the O-line. All right, Dave. Some other more minor things to talk about here. Anthony Chickolo signed a 1-year deal with the Saints. We don't know how much that's for. I assume it's for the minimum or very close to that. You think it's that exception thing or minimum salary benefit?
Yeah, I would be shocked if it isn't this late because the Saints anyway they were already kind of up against it.
Right.
I think as it was there with James, adding Jameis and all like that. So I will be surprised if it's not a minimum salary benefit deal with him.
Yeah,
and look, he's going to have to make it on special teams, plain and simple. I mean, he's going to have to make himself uncuttable there.
Yeah, good special teams player in Pittsburgh. Really never became anything more than that as a pass rusher. Although also Anthony Chickolo had some of the best training camps I've ever seen. They just never translated into Sundays. The NFL is proposing a change to their onside kick, where teams could now, instead of kicking an onside kick, attempting one because of how unsuccessful those are, the teams could opt for a 4th and 15 attempt. If they get the first down, that is them converting the onside kick, and they get possession of the ball. That can only be used twice a game, and I think the team has to be trailing in order to exercise this option should this rule get passed. I'm in favor of it, though. I think onside kick, it's become so difficult, and so just a gimme for the return team to recover it, that I think adding something different is good for the league.
Yeah, I like it. I wrote about that yesterday when it hit on Twitter that it seems to be getting some support this go around. I do like it. I think it adds another aspect. And look, in another 10 years, are we going to have kickoffs in the NFL anymore? Probably not, right?
That's the way it seems to be going. It hurts me to say because I really like the element of the game, and I'll be disappointed. But the NFL is trying to head that direction for sure.
Either that, or we're going to see something very modified, maybe like what the XFL tried along those lines. But I mean, I want teams to be, taking the running start out from it will help eliminate, I guess, some of the car crashes there. But I mean, they're still going to happen. Kickoffs is probably still going to be your highest producer of probably concussions on single tight plays, if you will.
Yeah, just the helmet-to-helmet crash. You have to do that at full speed. Look at linemen; they're not running 10 yards into each other, but just that repeated hitting adds up over time. That's the impact.
I think what did the AAF do? 4th and 12, right?
Was it?
I think it was. I think it was 4th and 12 that the AAF. I like that a little bit more. I don't know. What do you feel? I mean, 4th and 15. I think Pro Football Reference is having problems with their stuff right now. Can you find out how many teams went for 4 exactly? Even over the last 5 years, because I couldn't get it to come up. 4th and 15 exactly. How many teams called pass plays last year on 4th or the last 5 years on 4th and 15? Can you pull that up?
I'll try. Yeah. PFR.
It's been wonky.
Well, they're going to the paid thing soon. I don't know if you saw that. They're moving the play index to another website and this whole nonsense. So you want 4th and 15 exactly? Or
right.
You want anything? Okay, let me look here. Because to the answer to the question of what is the right distance, it would all have to matter around percentages, and I'd have to look at that so I can try to pull that up now. You want just from last year, from the last 5 years?
For the last 5 years, 4th and 15, exactly 4th and 15.
Okay.
How many times was a pass play called?
Yeah, because you want a success rate that's higher than the onside kick, but not that's so high that it'd be a gimme. Yeah, I think PFR is not going to come up. It's not giving me any results.
It's just not me, and you'd have to think it's happened 4th and 15 or at least once in the last 5 years, right?
Oh, I mean, that's a pretty safe bet. Let me try one more thing and just make it like 4th and 15 plus and see if it'll expand out.
I tried that too, and I couldn't get it to do that either.
Yeah, it's not coming up for me. Yeah, everyone's going to the paid thing, but I imagine, you'd have to find out what the success rate is and work from there. I'm fine with 4th and 15. Though that makes sense.
You don't think 4 and 12? Because I mean, let's face it, the success rate. I mean, I agree.
We're splitting hairs, I think, at that point.
But I mean, 3 yards. That's.
I'd have to look at the numbers. I mean, what is the conversion rate on 4th and 12 versus 4th and 15 relative to onside kick? That's math I don't know. Yeah,
we'll have to wait and see if we can get the results on that. I know I linked to a post, and if people want to check out the post that I did on that, I linked to a post that goes to some stat. Because look, they tried. They were going to do this, it was able to be done during the Pro Bowl this past year, but I just don't think any team took advantage of it.
Right. I mean, it'd be interesting. How many coaches are going to do this? I mean, you'll have some like Harbaugh that I think would do it a lot, but a lot of these coaches are conservative, scared. I don't know how often it's really going to be exercised, but there are obviously some rule limitations on it too. But I just wonder how much teams will actually attempt it.
I just think because the unpredictability of a kicked ball, versus the predictability of being able to throw a pass at least on target versus kicking a ball and having it be quote unquote on target alone would make it more, more worth the risk. I guess
what I'm asking is, would they do it outside of the normal circumstance you would do an onside kick? Would they do it?
No, obviously not. No, okay. I think you're more apt to have the element of surprise with an onside kick.
Sure.
In rare, like coming out of the halftime of the Super Bowl, or whatever. That's when the element of surprise and trickeration can come in, that element. No. Do I think we're going to see teams outside of end of game situations do this? No.
Okay. So you think it'll be used at the same rate? It would just be a little more successful.
I don't know if it's going to be more successful or not.
You don't think it'd be more successful? I think it would be. I think you'd have a higher conversion rate of 15 than the onside kick.
I would like to think that they would, but once again, that's why I'm interested to see the numbers.
Yeah. I mean, what is the percentage of an onside kick? Right? What is it? It's like 2%.
Yeah, it's low.
It's real low. I got to imagine 4th and 15. It's not high. It's not 20%, but it's got to be like 6%.
And I mean, do you like the aspect? I think one of the stipulations is you can only do it twice a game.
Right, you have to be trailing and no more than twice a game. I think, I'm cool with that. Because then the Chiefs will just have the ball the entire season because they're going to do it with Patrick Mahomes so many times.
Right, but I like it. I just question the length. I think is all I question is maybe should it be? Why did I have to read back? Why did the AAF come up with 12 yards instead of 15 yards? I mean, I'm sure it wasn't just arbitrary.
Yeah, I'm sure they ran some numbers.
Sometimes like topics on this podcast, just
right.
Arbitrary.
If this is the end of the onside kick, then we will remember the Boswell-Rabona onside kick attempt with great fondness.
That's another thing I was thinking about last night after writing this topic up, knowing that we were probably going to talk about it was, man, with all the free time that kickers have, wouldn't you think they could be able to get a ball to behave 3 or 4 different ways on these things? At least think that, okay, the ball's going, I'm going to do this, and the ball's definitely going to be at least 6 feet off the ground at 7 yards. You would just think that, I mean, with all the time and this being a skill, position, wouldn't you think that kickers would be better at being able to do certain things on an onside kick?
Maybe. I mean, we're getting a lot of math territory, which is making me nervous, making me sweat over here. Maybe, but it's just that weird shape of the football where it's just so unpredictable. Where you don't hit it exactly right. It's not like playing pool where everything's shaped nicely and you can plan stuff out.
But I played a lot of pool growing up. So, I mean, a lot of it is where you hit, with
right.
English.
But it's easier to hit a pool ball than a football.
I mean, these guys do it enough. That's what they're paid to do.
I know. I don't know.
What is the ideal? What is the ideal when you see one coming off a tee? Okay, what immediately? A second and a half after it comes off tee. What in your view is the ideal? Onside kick.
To me, it's hitting it in the ground so it takes a hard bounce into the ground, then pops up, and then it basically just becomes a free for all.
Absolutely. You want that thing kind of in the air and coming down about the 10 or 11 yard mark,
right.
Whereas it gives your guys time to meet them. That way there's more opportunity of that ball getting touched, the guy getting hit before he secures it, that ball just becoming a free for all.
Yeah, or just like a big old rugby scrum. It can't even be less than 10 yards because you're just waiting for the other team to try to touch it. Then you're just hitting those guys, and then it's a free-for-all for the football.
So back to my point, why does it seem like it's so hard? It didn't take us both long to agree that that's in our viewpoint over the year. That's the ideal kind of kick, right?
Sure, but a whole lot easier for us to say it from the comfort of our houses.
Sure, but I mean, these guys practice that stuff constantly.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the whole point I'm trying to make. You would think on demand you'd be able to get a kicker to hit that thing on an onside kick and it at least be able to hop up in the air and be in the air at least 6 or 7 yards off the air at the 10-yard mark. To me, now look, I mean, obviously I couldn't go out and do it right now myself. But I mean, but if I was earning what some of these guys are earning, and that was my job, and I didn't, all practice, that's all I had to work on, and all off season, that and a few other things, you could bet for damn sure my probability is gonna be up there. I think it would be.
I understand. It's a good question. I wish I had an answer, but let's get Danny Smith on the show and talk about it. I mean, if Jordan Berry could perfect the punt pass at Eastern Kentucky, that crazy play that he had back in college, and you think he could manipulate the ball well. Like, remember, you ever see that clip of North Dakota State quarterback Easton Stick dribbling the football between like his legs and stuff?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, that's being able to manipulate the football in some intended way. Obviously, it's different than kicking it, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. I guess it's just easier said than done. The shape of the football is unpredictable. It's hard. It's the pressure of the moment too. I don't know, but it may be irrelevant because at this point, I'm guessing this 4th and 15 rule passes to some shape or form, and the onside kick is phased out almost entirely.
All right, we spent probably way too long on that, but it's topical right now.
We'll update you on any official rule changes there. Last thing I want to mention was I did a video the other day. You can check it out on Steelers Depot. Stephon Tuitt's return. We talked about how important his return is and how I think, while obviously Ben is the number one guy you want to return and return healthy and return to his old form, getting Tuitt back, especially in a year where you lose Hargrave, is a close second place in terms of importance of getting that guy back. And I went back and watched Tuitt's old tape last year and how impressive that dude was, and I cannot wait to see him back healthy in 2020.
The thing with him all along really has been there's really just been two kind of things with him throughout his career. Getting nicked up, and being able to stay on the field, and B, just missing sacks. How many just missed sacks has he had? How many more sacks should Tuitt have at this point of his career? 10?
Probably. And he was getting so much better at that last year, and then he goes down with the injury, and that's what made it all the more the gut punch.
I mean, he's been a good player. He's developed throughout his career. It's just that he hasn't been able to stay on the field all the time. And then last year, and especially last year when it looked like everything was all together, because he was, I mean, what stuck out the most, I assume you mostly looked at 2018 and the first 5 games of 2019, right?
Yeah, well, I just did 2019 tape. I just wanted to remind people how good he was playing just last year before going down with injury, and how dominant, to me, he was the MVP of that defense before tearing his pec.
He's not – you look at him on tape, man, and you go back to like the game against the 49ers and the Seahawks last year. He's a load.
Yeah, he took over. You know what I love most about Tuitt are his hips. He's got really good hips for a big guy. A lot of balance, a lot of flexibility, a lot of bend. You just don't see I don't think even Hayward has that. The hips that Tuitt has. It's really rare. It's really special.
He is still young too, man. He's 20. He'll turn 20. Believe it or not, he'll turn 26 tomorrow or 27 tomorrow.
Wow. Yeah, I mean this dude's.
Yeah. May 23rd. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this guy's a really talented player. Obviously healthy. He had the old James Conner caveat of he's got to stay healthy. That's been the issue with him. It's like Conner. It's been a lot of acute stuff, random stuff that's popped up. Really unfortunate. A lot of bad luck. But when this dude's healthy, I mean, is he as good as Hayward when they're both healthy? It's up there.
Well, I mean, look, they've been moving Hayward around a lot more, Well,
they move Tuitt around. I mean, they take advantage of those guys.
They're right there I mean, them together on the field's tough, and especially when you had Hargrave playing, the way he was playing in certain situations last year. Going back, while we're talking about defensive linemen, on the last show we talked about the Steelers defense with McCullers on the field against the run. Well, since we did that, I think the next day I broke down the passing numbers, how the Steelers defense were with a 3-man front, with McCullers in the middle against dropbacks. And they weren't good. They weren't good there either. Now, once again, I think it's important to remember that Tyson Alulu was on the field once again, like with the run snaps, he was on the field quite a bit. But there was a good 10 snaps, 11, 12 snaps, forget exactly how many, that Hargrave was on the field playing a defensive end spot on the side of McCullers. There was a snap or two with Tyler Matakevich on the field there. But for the most part, you got your core defense. When you look at each individual play and you're coming up with, well, how did McCullers play on these? What did I come away with? It was like 50 running plays, and do you remember how many passes?
37 number coming to mind. Does that sound about right? I can look it up.
I'm trying to remember what the total pass and run plays out of a 3-man front when McCullers on the field last year.
In total, McCullers was on the field for a total of 37 dropbacks last season when lined up a nose tackle. Of those 37, opposing quarterbacks completed 22 of 36 passes for 335 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So 37.
Okay, and it was like 50 against the run, right?
Let me look at the other article that you had. That sounds about right, though.
See, I can remember the stuff that happened 15 years ago, but sometimes let's see. Against the run, it was
50, exactly 50.
Okay, it was 50. So we got about not even 90 snaps, right?
Yep, 87 total.
And I went back and watched damn near. I watched every run snap, and I think I watched damn near every pass snap too as doing this. I didn't come away feeling, man, McCullers was awful.
Yeah, I think. Obviously, the run stuff has merit, and maybe the pass to some degree, but I can't put any pros or cons on pass defense on McCullers' feet.
Right, it's just a sum of the parts thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just more correlation as opposed to real causation that McCullers is impacting the pass game in any meaningful way.
Right, and this is where I kind of left this with the post the other day. Do these stats being so different when McCullers on the field mean that he was the main problem against the run or the pass? And really, I don't think you can come away with saying, well, and then that's a little bit of an obvious too. You just can't pin it on one person,
especially the nose tackle.
Right, but it is quite curious that the Steelers defense last year was pretty much awful when he was on the field.
Yeah, what was the conversion success rate for offenses when Hargrave was on the field in passing situations?
I don't know if I pulled that one, but I mean, obviously you got a lot larger sample size.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out because let's see, it says the offense had 56.8% of successful plays with McCullers on the field. Is that bad number, 56.8 on pass plays?
It's not great.
You said it's a bad. I mean, is it what number should we be shooting for? I don't know what the normal success rate.
I would have to go back and look at. I would think around 50%.
Okay, because I just don't know 56.8 is a bad number for the defense to give up or not. I don't know something to compare it to there.
Well, here's the thing too. You'd have to split it down too because these. I think a lot of these pass plays weren't they first and second down with McCullers here.
I imagine so. I mean, I look at
all 37 dropbacks. And here's another thing that you have to consider in here. All 37 dropbacks that McCullers was on the field for, as in the middle of a 3-man defensive front, came on either first or second down. So you would have to separate that out to a league wide for a success rate, I think.
Right. Yeah. I don't have a whole lot to compare to.
Obviously most of the first downs are going to be first and 10s, right. And those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean the conversion rate aside, the success rate aside, I mean quarterbacks were 22 of 36 at 61% completion percentage, which is not that great, with no touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I mean those aren't terrible numbers for a defense to have on first and 10, basically.
Well, the thing is, no sacks. And the other thing that stuck out to me was I think there was like 5 total pressures in that.
7.
7? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And McCullers had 2 of them?
All right. I mean, he's got 2 of the 7. That's higher than I thought it would be.
So just once again, one of those things that leave you. It's one of those things that's going to take further. And whether or not we get to it or not, it's really kind of insignificant. I think it's just one of those anomalies of why the defense was so bad whenever he was on the field.
Yeah, again, just without doing too much of a deeper dive, I chalk up to more correlation as opposed to causation. I wouldn't blame McCullers for any issues they had in pass defense with him on the field.
But he's still not a guy that we want to see out there a lot.
Right, but it's shaping up to be it's going to be him and I think an Lulu to split in time as a nose tackle this year.
Right.
That's my guess. I don't know. We'll see. Last thing here, Dave, you wanted to talk about. PFF has Steelers wide receiver group ranked 18th in the NFL. I think that's a little low, but I'm not going to lose a whole lot of sleep over it.
No, I'm not either. But look, Deontay came into his own. You obviously would. There's just not enough sample size there. To bang the table that you can moderately bang the table. I think when it comes to Deontay right now.
And PFF loves Deontay Johnson more than anybody else, I think.
And they do that. They do. Now, look, Juju, you'd expect him to be able to, have obviously a much better season than he had last season. James Washington really kind of came into his own last season. So, what was it great? No, but I mean, he made a lot of great catches. I thought the kind of stuff where you thought, okay, well, that's the kind of stuff that we saw at Oklahoma State with him. So, not a year in the offense for him should obviously help him. I mean, you got, your least experienced wide receiver at this point is a guy that had a tremendous, I wouldn't say tremendous, but a very good rookie season.
Yeah, I think this team's in prime position to overshoot this 18th ranking. And PFF, to their credit, basically says there's a wide range of outcomes for this group in 2020, but the ceiling is there with a healthy Ben Roethlisberger. So I think this group can be a much better group than 18th ranked by season's end.
You would hope so. They need to be.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, you would hope. We're talking about this unit maybe being a top 10 group.
Right. And if Ben can stay healthy, it's hard not to see this group, not succeeding. Because if Ben's healthy, these guys are going to play well because they got all of him quarterbacks thrown to him.
Where would you rank the running back group? I think we got a question about that somewhere.
Do we? Yeah, I'm bad with the rankings. I just don't think about the league-wide stuff enough. I mean, again, it does all dependent on Connor's health. I'd probably put him about average. I think Connor, when healthy, is up there, but obviously it's just tough to trust him to be available for all 16 games. And if he's not, then the group behind looks relatively uninspiring compared to the rest of the league.
All right, let's. Should we? You got anything else for us to cover?
No, that's everything. Let's go to some reader emails and start wrapping up the show.
All right. This one's from JJ in Lexington. Watching limited tape on the rookie Brooks, he kind of reminds me of Lee Flowers, who was a liability in coverage but strong in run support. I suppose that's fair. It's been so long since I've remember watching some Lee Flowers stuff. Just the thing with Brooks, he's a lot more effective the closer to the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, he does play sometimes quite a bit like a linebacker. He's not afraid to stick his face in the fan. There, you could do a lot of things with him. He's one of those guys that's just got the knack of coming off the edge as well too. Good with that timing.
Yeah, obviously better close line of scrimmage, a thumper, a tone setter. He does have good hands though. And if he can catch the football, if the ball's thrown his way, he can finish the play. So I do like his hands. But yeah, he's a box type guy, maybe a potential linebacker conversion, and I think a guy that can really do well on special teams as a rookie.
We still don't expect to see much with him outside of special teams, at least initially.
Ideally, if he's on the field, then either he's way overperforming expectations or something else has gone terribly wrong with injury situations.
With facilities opening Tuesday, I believe, will players be coming in, is what JJ asked. JJ, I think that's limited to guys needing treatment or rehab. So, these now, does that mean we're going to have 90 guys with hangnails? I wouldn't think so. I think there's probably some stipulation to kind of. This is an aspect too. This bothers me more so than probably most. I because of some areas, obviously. I mean, obviously not all team facilities can open yet because of local level stipulations. Correct.
Correct.
All right, so does that give a team an unfair advantage to be able to bring their guy, their injured in over a team that can't?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. It's you can't say it doesn't. I mean, there is an advantage. I think it's just a very slight one, and I believe the number of facilities that remain closed are slight are only a few. I think remain closed still. So and to what I saw, Atlanta, I saw a video of them kind of showing the reopening of their facility. I think they only have 5 guys coming in, so it's not like teams are going to be able to exploit the rules and have half the team in the room. Coaches cannot be there right now. It's just for rehab. It's just for training staff. So it's an advantage, yes, but it's a very slight one that I think you can live with.
Okay, but it's still an advantage, though, right? Maybe this is a good. Would this be a good question for Dr. Mel?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to ask her. I'd love to get thoughts. I agree, it's an advantage. I mean, how could you argue otherwise? If teams can do one thing and some teams can't do it, then of course it's an advantage for the teams that have the ability to do that right now. But I think it's just a good step to start opening again. It's a very slight advantage. It does not impact coaching staff or healthy players. So I think it's just a good step to try to get back to getting the NFL going again.
That's the first thing I kind of look for. What's the fairness aspect of stuff like that? To me, yeah. I mean, look. I mean, is it monumental? I mean, you'd much rather have you guys working with your own people inside your own building than opposed to not, right? So
right.
That's where I come down on that. But look, I mean, here's as far as the Steelers are concerned. I mean, you would think you get Ben back in the building, getting poked and prodded, and probably some some conversation with maybe some people that he probably shouldn't have conversations with, right?
I don't know where you're leading me there. I'm worried.
I'm just saying. I mean, you're not supposed to have certain contact with certain people, but I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, I'm just happy that we're starting to get to that process. You want to do it safely, securely, of course, but just hearing that they're opening facilities, they're working towards that is some positivity I think I needed right now.
He just goes on to say, you guys need to sign a Joe Rogan type of deal.
We're moving to Spotify.
Well, I don't know what that means.
Do you know Joe Rogan? You know Joe Rogan.
Is he an actor?
You don't know who Joe Rogan is? You yell at me all the time. Joe Rogan, he's UFC.
I'm thinking of Seth. For a moment. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So you mean with him moving it to an island and all?
Well, no. What happened? You ever listened to Joe Rogan's podcast before, the Joe Rogan Experience?
No, I'm
okay.
Watching tape. I'm watching tape for
all right, it's like
football.
The #1 podcast for several years now. He's been doing it on YouTube and kind of more independently, and he just signed like $100 million deal to move everything to Spotify. So this guy's saying we should go to Spotify, and if Spotify wants to give us $100 million, then I am game.
I'm just trying to learn how to record a podcast properly still at this point, where I don't come in all hot and loud.
Dave, you're ruining our leverage over here. Don't tell Spotify that.
I need a better producer to sit here in the producer chair or something to work out this stuff. Anyway,
we'll get Jamie. That's a Joe Rogan reference.
P.S. Dave, assign Alex to watch Cool Hand Luke. It's dead. It's the dead period. Yeah, I'm trying to.
All right. Well, you better get some emails about you never listen to Joe Rogan.
Juju versus Bud from Austin Hackett. Hey guys, Austin out of Denver. Before my questions, want to mention I thought Alex did an awesome job on the Tuesday podcast by framing Big Dan's limitations as a nose tackle and how it would limit other guys on the defense. Great stuff. My question or rant for you guys is about extending Juju versus Bud this offseason. Seemed like it's been framed as if they can't extend Bud by the July 15th deadline, then move on to Juju. But if you rewind to this time last year and anyone told you that extending Bud should be prioritized over Juju, you would have laughed at them. It's so easy to forget Juju was Rookie of the Year. Look, I mean, I think Juju's fantastic, okay? I'm able to compartmentalize what happened with Juju last year because of, it was an injury in the quarterback situation. I'm fully expecting Juju to be able to bounce back and hopefully have a season similar to 2018. Now, will it be as good as 2018? We'll see. But, I mean, this is a guy I think that can easily catch 80 passes for well over 1,000 yards, 8, 9, 10 touchdowns, something along those lines. The reason I was talking about Bud is because, look, there is this is kind of a line in the sand for Juju as well too. Juju would be kind of silly in my opinion because of the ability to bounce back for him to even sign a deal that puts him out of the top 10 because of the ability to maybe get a top 10 contract, next season there. And because of, and look, it's another cap situation as well too. They could technically still have both players come this time next year, talking about Bud and Juju. And the easiest way and the most logical way for that to happen would be they franchise tag Bud this year, sign him to a long-term contract, wait on Juju. He has a great season. Then you tag Juju next offseason. That's probably the only way technically that you're going to get both guys signed. Now, however, could they extend Bud and still get Juju signed to a, I think the kind of deal that Juju would take and only take this offseason would be one that would lock him into at least the top 15, and I don't think the Steelers are willing to go there. So if it came off as me as framing it as one way, then that's my bad for explaining it that way. But it's not like I'm trying to say one should be prioritized over the other.
Yeah, no, I don't think it came off that way, and I think if it did, then I think you clarified those comments, and I agree. I would just say that, again, it's about Juju. Is he willing to do a deal right now for what would probably be below market value when he can have this year? He's healthy, Ben's healthy, put up better numbers. He will build his value this year. It cannot be worse than where it is right now, and so he's got nothing but time and just wait on himself and try to get more money after the season. And then also just to the point of, a year ago, you would have laughed at this to say Dupree over Juju. Again, it's not Dupree over Juju, but also information changes. Things change so much year to year that I can't use what happened a year ago to create my vision for the future, the decisions for the now. You just based off the information that you're working with now, not old information you had a year ago. And Dupree obviously changed the conversation dramatically by his play in 2019.
Man, look, I mean, if you're expected to spend X amount of guaranteed money on a player, or trying to lock up a guy like Bud, and that falls through, maybe it opens you up to do something. You remember years ago when they were trying to get Mike Wallace to sign a deal? Well, who ended up getting a deal?
AB.
Right.
Yeah, it was AB.
Now,
yeah.
I'm not saying that this is kind of the same situation here, but some of your best laid plans sometimes can get altered or whatnot, And now I don't think that it's necessarily that's the way that's going to go this year, and hopefully none of what I've said this offseason about Juju has come off as a negative on him whatsoever. He goes on to write, let's see, I'd assume they could only manage Cam and either Juju or Bud. The argument I hate is when people say Juju isn't a number one and everything he did his first two seasons was just because AB. Here's the thing, though. We haven't really seen other than, there was, you go back to even when AB was with this team and those games that AB missed. Juju fared very well in a large portion of those games that AB missed, okay? But we haven't seen it for a full season yet.
Yeah, I think obviously it's very simplistic to say, Juju's success is only because of AB's presence. I think that's just too surface level. But yeah, obviously, Juju didn't have the season he wanted to have last year for a variety of reasons, and that's why he wants to rebuild his value and really get the best view of Juju possible when he's healthy, when Ben's healthy, when the offense isn't the worst in football. Now you can really accurately gauge the type of player Juju is. So I'm confident he's going to have a big bounce back type season, but I think the team wants to see it and he wants to see it for himself, and that's whenever he's going to really be able to cash in, because if he has a great year, either Pittsburgh's going to have to tag him, they're going to have to pay him, or someone else is going to pay him a whole lot of money.
Look, Juju's not the same kind of receiver as AB either. He's not as good a route runner as AB. Obviously, these two really kind of play different positions on top of it. We've seen how many times were you just left after we were running out of superlatives to describe some things AB was doing.
Sure,
right?
AB's a Hall of Famer. In terms of talent, and Juju's not there and probably will never be there, and that's not me being mean to Juju.
Okay. But that's okay.
I mean, you can't expect him to be at AB's level. That's fine. They're not all going to be like legendary receivers of that era. So Juju's still a very good player. I think he'll have a good year.
And what is a number one wide receiver? I mean, what does that even mean today?
Yeah,
most targeted.
I think most targeted, but the guy that your offense runs through. That everything you do offensively, passing wise, conceptually, is run through that player. And AB was clearly that guy.
And Juju's not.
Not right now. I mean, again, I want to see him this year. It's a big year for Juju. We're going to learn, I think, a lot about Juju the way we learned a lot about Dupree last year. So I think he'll have a good year, but you do want to see it.
And that's what I'm saying. We have seen Juju play very well without AB on the field in pass, but it's a very small section of play. What's the word I'm looking for?
Sample
size there when it comes to that. It's been positive, but we have to see him. We have to see the offense run through him for a full year as a number one for us to say. Now, look, here's the positive here. People are going to have to pay more attention to Deontay this year. If anything, he earned a little bit of respect. Especially as that season wore on. Look, I mean, this guy should be even more conditioned. He should be ready for the rigors of an NFL season, building on what he did. He should have a better understanding of the offense. Yeah, he should have a better quarterback.
I was just gonna say
throwing the football there. So, these two guys should make each other better, along with Ben, having been back on top of Washington another year, Claypool getting infused into this offense, all the way around there. So I sure hope I haven't come off as a Juju hater or whatnot. The fact of the matter is where you sit at right now, there is a very good chance this time next year that Juju's not on this team, and I think that's the biggest thing. I think people need to try to understand that the plausibility of that happening is real.
Mm-hmm. It is. And to the last point that the reader made, you can't keep everybody. He's talking about Hayward and Dupree and Juju, and mentioned Connor and Hilton and Filer, Villanueva on the last podcast. I mean, this team's going to lose quite a bit of talent after the season.
Right, and he kind of adds that. Then let Bud play out the tag and probably walk next year and use the cap dollars on guys like. I guess he's trying to say the Steelers. I guess in roundabout he's trying to say, look, the Steelers shouldn't bother messing with Bud this offseason and try to go ahead and lock Juju up. But the thing is, Austin, what do you think? What do you think Juju should earn? What kind of contract, A, do you think is fair for him to take and fair for the Steelers to give him?
Yeah, I think the point you made about Juju is that it's not that I'm unwilling to give Juju a deal right now. It's that is he willing to do a deal right now for less money than he would make a year from now if he has the type of season that he thinks and I think that he'll have. And so there's just, like you say, it'd be foolish to do a contract extension right now for your Juju.
Right.
And he's not hurting for money. He's got plenty of money.
You wouldn't think he is.
Right, he's not the typical rookie that's making rookie deal but has no other outside money coming in. He's making more money doing everything else than he is in the NFL right now.
Blake Letterall writes in, Bleacher Report, yeah, I know. He says Steelers had the worst running back group in the NFL. Got me thinking, do we have the worst group of backs in the league?
No. Jeez, Bleacher Report, really grasping for straws there. I mean, I don't have it ranked, but I mean, again, Connor. Again, people underestimate how good Connor is. I know it's healthy and blah blah blah, but when this dude is out there, he is a really talented back.
Yeah, he's an offensive version of Stephon Tuitt times two. Yeah, look, the big thing with him is getting him to be able to stay on the field because we got to see in 2018 what all he can do. Now I think they need to lessen the load on him a little bit, hopefully this season. But I mean, look, Benny Snell wasn't awful when given given the rock a couple times during those games that Connor missed and all. So and not having a quarterback back there all played into that, I think, as well too. And the offensive line definitely had their struggles at times last year. But I think saying they have the worst group of backs in the league is a little strong. I don't know where I'd rank them, but I damn sure wouldn't rank them last.
Amen to that.
Let's see, what else do we have here? Jerry Thrash, longtime listener, first-time writer. All right, Jerry, good to hear from you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Hello, Dave and Alex. I've listened for years, but in catch-up mode. Being on the West Coast, I'm usually a little late to email in. I definitely appreciate your program and the content you present. Compelled by the incentive discussion, minority hiring, I had to put work on hold and chime in. For years, I've been saying the NFL can correct the salary cap situation by incentivizing some teams, some team signings. This year we hear that they will start it, but not the scale that they should. Maybe I'm reading this. For years, I've been saying the NFL can correct the salary cap situation by incentivizing same team sign. I don't know what he means by that. Do you understand what he's trying to get at there? The same incentive can apply for minority. Maybe he's talking about salary cap and players having incentives.
Well, he's talking about minority coaches. He talking about the proposal about getting the higher draft pick if you hire a minority coach?
Well, he's saying the same incentive can apply for minority hiring, similar to the exception that the Steelers received with Scotland Williamson. Depending on the level of the hire, GM, head coach, coordinator, etc., the team will be able to receive a percentage discount on salary cap re-signings. Maybe that's i.e. Let me hear him out. He's first time emailer here.
Fair enough.
I.e. hiring a minority GM can allow the team to realize a 3 to 5% or more relief on a designated free agent re-up or new signing. This can be for up to a certain dollar amount, length of hire, etc. Head coach 2 to 3% or more, coordinator 2%. You can pretty much run with the idea. We are in the spitballing phase. Lastly, having lived among the Polynesian peoples, please, for the sake of Tyson's masculinity, alu alu. Jerry from California. All right.
Yeah, I know I've gotten some comments about how do you say it? Alu? Is that it?
Alu.
Someone said that, and there have been, if there was a camera on me for the podcast, there have been so many times where I've gone to say his name and I was going to try to change the pronunciation, but I bailed at the last second because I was going to screw it up. I'll work on it though, but I can't promise you anything because it's so ingrained for me just to say alu, but alu. No promises, but I'll try, Jerry.
Chukwama Okorafor.
Yeah, hey, you got that one down pat. You're solid there. To the point about the broader point about incentivizing, teams to get something if they hire minority coaches, I just don't like that idea in general. I don't like giving incentives to hire anyone. I want to obviously make sure there's as many opportunities as possible. I'm glad that they expand the Rooney Rule. You have to interview more minority coaches, that they got rid of the rule that you can't block hirings anymore and that kind of stuff. I think that's important. I want to give the opportunity, but if you hire a minority coach in just to get the incentive of whatever it is, does that do anyone any good? You always kind of be wondering, did I get hired just because this team can now have a higher draft pick or a better cut of the salary cap or whatever the incentive is? I just don't think offering incentives to hire somebody is the right way to go about it, regardless of what that is.
Me either, and that's why I said I think on the show the other day, it feels bribed.
Yeah, it is.
We have to bribe people. Look, do I have the perfect solution to this? Absolutely not. No, I wouldn't even want that job of having to figure out what's best in this situation. Even if you put a stipulation that every staff should have X amount of this minority or that, I mean, they just need to give more credence to the hiring. I do like the rules of having to hire to interview X amount. Yeah. But I mean, is that going to prevent some of these token Marvin Lewis interviews though? On top of it,
you're right. I mean, it might not change the landscape. I mean, it may not produce the results that they want.
Should there be should it be amount of years in the NFL too? You have to, you have to interview a minority with this amount of experience, and this amount. I don't, way above my pay grade here trying to figure out what the best thing is. But I think putting incentives on it where it gives a team any kind of advantage, I think is a wrong message there.
Yeah, I'm with you. Again, I don't know all the answers. It's difficult. There's no easy solution here. I'm open to the idea of obviously wanting to have more diversity, more representation in the coaching staff and those prominent roles, head coach and general manager. But I just don't think offering that incentive is the right way to go about it.
Yeah, I just don't think it's the right message there. Okay, this one thanks for the first time email. Jay writes in, hello, Dave and Alex. Love the show. Appreciate the work you guys do. Depths you go in order to provide quality content about the black and gold. I've been kicking around a scenario in my head for a while and wanted to hear your take on it. In this hypothetical scenario, let's say the Steelers could trade Bud Dupree for, let's say, a second-round draft pick. Please don't get hung up on the draft compensation or the likelihood of a Bud trade. That's not the point of this email. The point is you could trade him in order to receive some much needed cap relief while also getting draft compensation. You could then go and sign a guy like Marcus Golden, age 29, because I know Alex will ask, to replace him and use Golden, potentially Highsmith to replace those snaps for Bud. Really, I was interested to hear if you two would go along with this scenario and what your valuation was on a guy like Golden. Would this idea be worth it? P.S. I know the Steelers have no intention of trading Bud and have desire to sign him long term. This is really just a mental game I play with myself. I don't see how. I mean, you're putting this on one guy, on Marcus Golden, and you're putting this on the theory that you're going to be able to get Highsmith to come in and look, say what you will about Bud Dupree. He played very damn well last season.
Yeah, I understand it's a hypothetical. And on paper, does that make some level of sense? Do I get the logic of what you're asking? Sure, I understand the broader point you're trying to make. But, man, these things look good on paper a lot. When in practice, new guy coming in, do you trust a rookie to step up? I know Golden had a bounce back year with the Giants last year and rebuilt some of his value, but he's still on the street for a reason. It looks good on paper, but it doesn't always work out in practice. And with how good this team is, with how good this defense is playing, losing Hargrave already, I don't want to lose Dupree as well, because you finally built up this defense. It took so much time, so much of investment to jeopardize that and have it take a step backward in a small window to win here. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I think he's given Marcus Golden too much credit and is a little bit too bullish right now on Highsmith in his rookie season. I mean, I think I see it as a reach to expect go out and get Golden and expect him and Highsmith to give you even close to what Bud gave you last season.
Yeah, teams that rely on outside free agents to replace their own internal guys generally don't succeed well in the NFL. The Browns are a great example of that. So understand the point, understand the logic. The cap concerns are real. There'll be some very tough decisions coming up with Dupree and others, and I understand the logic behind what you're trying to say, but these things just don't generally work out as nicely on the field as they do in your head when you're just trying to do that mental exercise.
Let's see. Dave and Alex, man, I got a good laugh out of your rendition of Warriors Come Out and Play. I'm surprised Alex hadn't at least heard of the video game Rockstar Games did based on the movie. Is it?
No, I was not. I just know they do GTA and Red Dead and all that. I didn't know that. When was that game? When did that game come out? Let me look it up.
He says, but maybe even that's too old for Alex.
Maybe.
Oh, Alex celebrated a birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Alex.
Thank you,
Dave. How old are you? What?
27. I'm getting old. Cobra's not going to sign me pretty soon here.
Yeah, you're still under 30. Can you play? Can you play special teams? And
I'll run through a wall for Danny Smith.
Will you accept the NFL minimum?
I will. 2005 looks like it was when that Warriors game came out. So around my time, but no, I never heard of it.
I wanted to write in to comment on the audio quality of the new headsets. I've been selling guitars and related gear for 19 years in Savannah. I bet I know Jeff. I bet I've been through whatever stores. I bet he would know me on site. He probably recognizes my voice. 19 years because I have gone through some guitar stores in Savannah. I think I may have a somewhat educated guess as to why it sounds the way it does. It sounds like maybe the input gain is too hot, causing the mics on your headset to sound overdriven. It sounds like a scratchy speaker on my end. Maybe it's unique to me, but thought I'd throw in my 2 cents. I tried dialing back the input gain if possible. It doesn't sound as clear, as crisp as it used to. Well, I'm back on my old headset today. I don't know how this is going to, but I spent all day, pretty much all day the last 2 days trying to play with this stuff. So we are continuing to try to make this thing better. And I don't know why I'm having such an issue on it. So, Jeff, if you want to reach out to me via another email and you and I chat, and I had Spencer Crick, another long who lives in Savannah, try to look at this as well too. I don't know what the issue is. If I did, I would have fixed it 10 years ago. So I'm not as good at audio as what I used to be many moons ago when I'd plug in guitars.
Yeah, and audio is just a pain in general. I remember, I worked at a TV station in college. Audio was always the biggest issue. My input gain is up there pretty high. I don't know if I've sounded as hot. I mean, I think I sound okay, but I can definitely mess with it and turn down my input gain a little bit.
Where is that even at?
If you're using the headset that I'm using, Dave, when you open up the software, it's the first thing that you see. It's just mic level input gain. Whenever you open
I don't have software for this particular.
Yeah,
headset.
for the other headset, this headset I don't know. The one you're using now, I don't know, but the Logitech one that we used for last week's episode, you have to open up the software and that'll show you your input gain.
Okay.
But I don't know how it would work for your current headset. I don't know what's going on there.
Okay. We're efforting. Sorry if it sounds so crappy.
At least it's the off season. It sounded good. It didn't sound that bad in last episode. We'll work on it.
Let's see here. Let's see. Throwing coach Edward Manley, Dave and Alex, love what you all do. Any chance Ben Roethlisberger allows for a mechanics or throwing coach to help protect his new elbow in his final years of football? That's way above Edward. That's way above my pay grade there.
I doubt it. The dude's 38. He's throwing the way he's throwing, unless he's dealing with pain or something in his throwing, which I doubt, because he seems to be throwing on the right track. I doubt he's going to change anything right now.
Let's see here. Shannon Long, rookie development roadblock. Hey, Dave and Alex, I know this scenario is very much on the theoretical side right now, but would be curious to hear your thoughts. For argument's sake, assume that the upcoming college season is disrupted. Example, more than half the games lost or more. This would mean the NFL would be dealing with rookies from this year's class, next year, and possibly even 2022 who are impacted by lost development time and experience more than in past years. If this were to materialize, do you think it could be a way for the league to embrace spring football again in 2022 with an eye on more direct involvement rather than standalone leagues like the XFL? Instead of NFL Europe, could you see a scenario in which teams partner together to supply practice squad players and other roster players with limited experience to this type of a league? Do you think it would have helped or hurt a player like Zach Gentry if such a league existed this year? So more evaluation of his skills could have happened before the draft took place, and Steelers would know more if they need to prioritize tight end or not. Thanks for everything you guys do to make the Steelers' decisions more understandable. Have a great week. Shannon, thanks for Shannon lives in Cranberry Township, by the way.
Hey, been like Cranberry, very nice place to be. No, I mean, short answer is, yeah, I think there's a lot of unknowns right now with the college football landscape, but I don't think those things are really practical or feasible. If there was some sort of upstart league returning, by the time they're able to play, then I assume college football is back, even without fans, just still playing again. I think it'll be very interesting to see what will happen. Will more players jump in the supplemental draft this July? And will some teams, or some players take the calculated risk of maybe football won't be back in their area, their school, and so they want to just jump to the NFL right now? And I don't see the NFL really putting that kind of financial stake in things, considering they're going to lose a lot of money right now this season, probably regardless of how things go. Even if games are played, they're probably going to lose some money, and they'd rather let other teams make that investment than they make that investment. So, and then to the final point about having, practice squad players be able to play in these little minor leagues, so to speak. I know the XFL was trying to do something like that last year. I mean, I understand the value in that. There is some value in that. But what if that guy gets hurt? What if Zach Gentry tears his ACL playing for this minor league team, then teams aren't going to support that because they're taking risks, coaching staff. Yeah, there's just a lot of logistical issues there. So I think college football will be played in the fall to some degree. Will there be fans? I don't know. Probably, maybe not. But no, I don't think the NFL is going to do that kind of stuff. They're going to let other people do their dirty work with trying to invest in new leagues.
I'm a fan. Going back to the old school NFL Europe days and all. I don't understand why they can't work again, to be honest with you.
It's not profitable. I think it just doesn't make money.
You don't think that in all this time the NFL game has developed, that the money that the NFL has put into the game overseas, that I mean, look, I mean, if you had a situation where teams, certain teams had to send X amount of players to a certain, you and I would follow it.
Yeah, but
and maybe able to give us something to write about for an eight week period of time, saying, well, here's the Steelers 6 players, and breaking down the film of how.
But that doesn't make them money. That's the thing.
I would think that if you did it overseas, I'm not so much talking about in the States. I'm strictly talking another kind of NFL Europe type thing. You don't think there would be enough money in that?
No, they wouldn't.
Okay.
I think they would lose money on that. I think there'd be some interest, but all that, how much money does it take to create a football league? I mean, how much money did the AAF and the XFL spend to upstart their league? And I mean, they could have the money for it. I mean, it's not like they would run out of money, but they would just be taking a loss every single year. Why not just let the college game be their minor league system? Why not just let other people like the XFL and the AAF be their minor league system? Why would the NFL want to invest that kind of money, take that loss every single year when other teams and other leagues can do it for them?
I just think I think if another league, if a developmental league were to survive moving forward, I would like its chances overseas more so than I would in the United States.
Maybe I still like it in the States more. Playing in Europe is a just logistical nightmare. I've read some of the stuff.
No,
I know
but if everybody's over there, whatnot,
it's just, I don't know. It's a lot of a mess. I just can't see the NFL doing it, especially because they're going to take a hit this year financially, right? The league is not going to make the money that they're used to making, regardless of what happens this year. Correct?
You would think they're going to take. I don't know what the percentage is.
Mm-hmm. Right. What was the projection the other day? Matthew wrote an article on the Steelers' projected loss, which was like $150 million, I think. I want to get the numbers right here. Didn't Matthew write about this? He wrote about this, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't remember.
About what the projected loss. It was like over $1 billion the league is expected to lose, or at least projected, or at least could lose. I want to find that number. I don't want to him and haw around it too much, but I just can't see them making that investment, losing money, and then trying to lose more money if they want to try to create a new league. It just, I get the point. I'm not opposed to it. I think there's some value in it, but I just don't think it makes financial sense for the NFL.
Now, then you even if you did get one up and running, I think you would have to have stipulations of what kind of player went over there. I would think that it wouldn't be. Draft picks should probably be. I don't know if draft picks should be included or how much. There would have to be some stipulations, all because there are some players that probably wouldn't want to do the double duty.
Right. Yeah, according to Forbes, and I'm not entirely sure how they got the evaluation, and this is just projection, but this is what Matthew wrote the other day. Steelers projected to lose $156 million if the season is played without fans. The league would lose $5.5 billion with a B if the season is played without fans.
Yeah. Once again, though, I think from a salary cap aspect, they would figure out a way not to have it decrease. At least right. I would think that would be the goal. To whether or not they can pull that off. Look, we are in a lot of uncertain ground, right now. But I mean, like I've continued to say, and I think even Mike Florio wrote about this the other day. The last thing that this league wants is the salary cap. The impact of a salary cap to cause so many of those middle
class is what
middle class type players to lose their jobs. And that's kind of exactly what would happen. You would have the haves and the have-nots because teams aren't going to pay a guy like Vince Williams $7-8 million if they've got a franchise quarterback Obviously, and look, to some aspect, it would give teams with an up and coming young quarterback, somewhat of a little bit of an advantage, more so because of teams that haven't still house their franchise quarterback. That teams that have made look. I mean, make no mistake about it, the Steelers restructuring Ben's contract with him having that $40 million cap hit next year. It's going to make it interesting if the salary cap goes down.
Right? He could take up like a quarter of their salary cap.
And you having to pay. You've got your your top heavy players on top of it. Would it result in them having maybe to part ways with a Marquise Pouncey, with a Stephon Tuitt?
I still think what would happen if the cap decreases is that players would just have to take a pay cut. Because the NFL would say, listen, either two things are going to happen. Either everyone's going to have to take a pay cut proportional to the loss in salary cap, or guys are going to start losing their jobs like crazy. And the players' union is going to be like, okay, we're just going to have to take a pay cut because you're not going to be okay with all those guys you mentioned losing their jobs.
Right, but I think the NFLPA would say, let's figure out some way to borrow from future cap dollars.
Right.
To affect, and definitely the players playing now. So I could, they're probably thinking, I could give a crap about the guys playing 10 years from now. I want my money now.
I don't think the cap would decrease, but if it did, if there was just no way to avoid it, I think that's what would happen. But I'm hopeful that the cap won't go down in any meaningful way.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this plays out. But just from my understanding of the CBA and the cap over the years and all, I would think they would do their best over the next 4 years or what have you to soften this by borrowing from future years. In other words, you just wouldn't see the kind of maybe increases from year to year that we would have probably normally seen otherwise. But I would think that they would find a way, more than anything, just to prevent this thing from going backwards in 1 year.
Yeah, I agree. But again, knowing that at least going to lose money this year, they may have to borrow from future cap years. This is not the time they're interested in exploring doing any sort of creating their own minor league system.
All right, we managed to Seinfeld the living you-know-what out of this episode. You got anything else to cover here?
No, I think we've talked enough. That's what we're good at, though. So I did not think we were going to go almost 2 hours on today's show, but good discussion as always.
All right. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow follow Alex Kozora at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar. For $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site there. So until Tuesday, Alex and I will be back at you on Tuesday. Get your questions in if you got any. Always looking for first-time emailers as well too. Love those questions. Keep them coming. So until then, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.